Welcome back to the PelviPreneur podcast. We're your hosts, Dr. Alyssa and Dr. Brianna Almeida. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We're getting personal because today's question is one we get asked probably more often than anything else. And it's this: if you had to start completely over from scratch, zero clients, zero reputation in a brand new area, maybe even a new niche, what would you actually do first?
And I love to answer this question because there's so much noise out there about what you should do when you're first starting out. Build a website, post on Instagram every day, run Facebook ads, and most of it honestly is just a distraction.
It really is. We want to cut through all of that today and just be really honest about what we would do. Not what sounds good in theory, what we'd actually do if everything was stripped back to zero.
And spoiler, it's probably not what you guys are expecting.
Okay, so let's get into it. If I woke up tomorrow and I had to start over, first thing I'm doing before anything else is getting really clear on who I'm for. Because
Yeah,
I
this
think
is
when
it
you're
right
starting
here.
out, there's this temptation to say, I'll see everyone. I do pelvic floor therapy, so I'll take postpartum women and prolapse and men's health and athletes and perimenopause. And I understand why it feels safer and it feels like there's more opportunity.
But it's actually quite the opposite, isn't it? When you try to speak to everyone, you end up connecting really with no one. And honestly, in the cash based practice, especially where your patient is actively choosing to invest in you, they need you to really speak directly to them. So we want to get very specific in this situation.
Yeah, and it's about how you talk about what you do, who you build relationships with, what type of content you create, what your intake process looks like. When you're clear on who you're for, every single decision from a business perspective just becomes easier.
And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. They know that they should maybe niche down, but they don't actually know how to pick.
So for me, I'd go back to the patient that I love working with the most. Not the most complex case, not the one that looks the best on paper, but truly the one where I finish the session and I feel energized rather than trained. The one whose problem I find genuinely interesting, the one I feel like I can serve better than almost anyone else.
That's like the niche right there, because if you're genuinely just lit up by the work that you're able to do, that really kind of comes through in everything. How you show up, how you talk about pelvic floor dysfunction with your patients, how your patients feel with you. I'm glad that you mentioned that because, again, I feel like that's really where you should go.
And it doesn't have to
Path.
be forever. I think some
Right.
people feel like they're stuck when they pick a specific niche or patient population, but it doesn't have to be forever. You can certainly expand into different areas of expertise later on. But at the start, being known for one very specific thing, being the person in your area who's the go to for that specific patient, that's what gets you traction early and quickly as well.
And one thing too that I think a lot of people don't realize is when you're picking out a niche, it should also be clear in terms of the referral pathway. It's great to pick a niche that maybe you're passionate about, but if nobody wants help in a particular area, then it doesn't really translate into like a feasible business model.
So, yeah, let's talk about referrals, right? Because that is one thing I wish somebody had told me kind of earlier on is like thinking about the clientele that you want to work with needs to be somebody that's actively seeking that type of help. And I think that's definitely underestimated. So, if I was starting over, building a referral network that made sense to my specific niche would be my number one priority in the first couple of months. Not necessarily social media, not necessarily the best looking website, although a working website would be on the list, but truly getting the right referral network.
And I think the good thing about what we do in a cash based practice is that we really should be just finding our people. We can do direct marketing if we just target our ideal clients. So thinking about the people that are in front of us and honestly where they spend most of their time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it can be really simple. Start by identifying, as mentioned, who is already seeing our ideal client. So if I'm focusing on postpartum women, who's in their world? Their OB-GYN, their midwife, maybe their PCP as well, their lactation consultant, their Pilates instructor. So there's lots of folks that already are in that world, and you just have to have those conversations with those folks.
Like you said, being involved in those kind of direct relationships, we always say it too, like people trust those practitioners most of the time. So if you are directly involved in their world and seeing their maybe personal trainer, Pilates instructor, they're already, again, in that atmosphere and they already trust those individuals. And honestly, those are the types of people that want your patient or prospective patient to find the answers that she's like looking for, whether it be leaking during a Pilates class or having pain with exercise. The people in your potential patient's atmosphere wants her to get help.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the way that I'd approach it early on is I would pick 5 people in my area, just 5 to start, and I'd reach out to every one of them personally, not necessarily like this mass email, but a true personal message or phone call saying, "Hey, I'm a pelvic floor therapist specializing in postpartum recovery. I'd love to grab a coffee and learn more about the types of patients that you're seeing."
Yeah, and that's really it. And you're not pitching yourself necessarily. It's all about just like starting a conversation with these folks. And honestly, at least in our practice here in East Long Meadow, the practitioners are genuinely happy when someone like us reaches out. They want those referral relationships too. And they want to know who to send their patients to. And they also want to know who they can trust.
Totally. And then you just follow through. You make the referral process really easy for them. You send maybe a note back when their patient comes to see you and you keep them in the loop. And you really then become the person they think of automatically just because you've made their job easier and you are truly giving their clients the type of results that they deserve as well.
Right. And that's really what it's all about. That trust really compounds over time. One good relationship with a provider, or again, we talked about an instructor, whatever it might be, that good relationship, they can send 10, 15, 20 patients your way. And our goal is really about helping people. So the more people that know about us and our skill set and really understand how truly life changing pelvic floor therapy can be, the more people that we're ultimately able to help.
Absolutely. And that's very different than just like posting on Instagram every day and hoping that somebody will find you. It's about, again, finding and developing real relationships. But I will say, let's talk about visibility a little bit too, because I know we just said referrals over social media and we stand by that, especially in the beginning. But there's a visibility piece that I think is non negotiable, especially not only just in the early days, but with the nature of how folks now find you, is being mindful about how can we become visible.
In terms of visibility, too, I think it means something a little bit differently than I think what other people might think it means in terms of being anywhere and everywhere, but it really doesn't mean being everywhere. It means making pretty consistent choices. If you're going to post on social media, being consistent on maybe one platform might be better than posting a little bit everywhere that just burns you out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that visibility means being findable. So it means that when someone hears your name from a referral, from a friend, from a quick Google search, and they go looking, that they find something that tells them who you are, that you're like a
Right.
real person and who you help and why you're the right person is really most important.
So, what do you think that looks like in terms of just like practice, putting that into practice?
Yeah. So again, if I were starting over, I guess I'd focus on 3 things: a simple, clear website, a Google business profile, and at least one social media platform where my ideal patient could actually find me because that's where they spend time. And I'd commit to showing up there consistently, not constantly, but consistently.
And I think that a lot of people think that your website has to be super fancy or that you need to spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a beautiful website. Although, yes, it's nice when they look like they're put together. However, a website doesn't really need to be fancy. It just needs to answer a few questions clearly. We want to know, who do you help? What do you help them with? And how do they book? It's really that simple. If someone lands on your site and can answer those 3 questions literally in 30 seconds, then your website is doing a good job.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, like the Google business profile is also one of the most, I think, look tools for local practitioners. When someone searches for pelvic floor therapy in your area, Google business is often what shows up first before your website, before your Instagram. So you really want to make sure that you set it up properly, get a few 5-star reviews on there. And that, when done efficiently, is working quietly for you in the background and doing a really good job of making you visible.
And I was going to say too, for PelviPreneur, and we help our clients both clinically and from a business perspective, but we definitely take the brunt of optimizing, right? Their Google My Business profiles, even their websites, doing all the back end work so that they don't have to spend $3 to $5,000 on a website.
Totally.
We just need to make it functional. So what would you say, I guess, in terms of like Instagram, you said you'd pick, again, just one platform to start, right? Instagram usually, would you say, is probably the best one? Yeah. And again, the content that you post doesn't really have to be super complicated. It just has to be useful, it has to be real. A lot of the clients that we have, they often talk about our social media and they like the personal touch, right? They're always like, wow, I feel like I know you guys, right? Just by scrolling through social media, just to be able to stay relevant, to answer any questions that your ideal patient is already asking, right? Speaking to experiences that they're already having, showing that you understand even the world that they're coming from and that you know how to help. That's the most important thing. Before we wrap up, I want to think about one more thing or add one more thing for everyone to think about because I think there's a mindset piece here that often doesn't get talked about enough. Starting over is scary, whether you are starting a brand new cash based practice, whether you're moving locations, whether you're going from an insurance based practice to, again, something different. Starting over can be scary. A lot of practitioners, especially experienced ones who are making, again, that shift to the cash pay model, feel this pressure to have everything perfect before they actually start. Like the website has to be ready, or the branding has to be sorted, or the Instagram has to look a certain way. And they wait. And while they wait, they have no clients. Niche down, build relationships, show up where your patients are, literally in that order. Everything else can wait. Thanks so much for listening today. If this resonated, share it with someone who's just starting out or even thinking about making the move to cash pay because this conversation is for them.